Good afternoon. My name is Burton Lee. Welcome to session 7 of European Entrepreneurship and Innovation Thought Leaders. Today we have a really amazing session. This is one of the keynote events of Stanford Entrepreneurship Week, Stanford eWeek. We invite you to tweet this liberally during your time here this afternoon. And today we're presenting for the first time our first Hungarian startup. And we're presenting, yes, Prezi. And we have the pleasure of presenting what I consider Europe's top startup today, Angry Birds, aka Rovio Entertainment, Peter Vesterbacka. And Peter actually is a returning speaker. He spoke in our first year of European Entrepreneurship and Innovation back in 2009 when Tekas and the Finnish government were partners here. So today we have 3 P's, P cubed, P to the third. Peter Arvai will be our first speaker, then handing off to Peter Halacsy, who's flown in from Budapest. Peter Vesterbacka has just flown in from Helsinki last night. So you're getting the hot scoop out of Nordic and Central Europe. Prezi, again, is also based here in the Bay Area. I don't want to scoop too much of what these guys are saying. And then Angry Birds, I think, is well known to each of us. So Peter Arvai, welcome. There you go. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, well, thank you, guys. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you guys for the invitation. And just before I start, I'm curious, how many of you have used Prezi ever in your life? Wow, that's great. Okay, I don't need to explain what Prezi is, but we'll be using a Prezi behind me in case you are wondering. And the reason why we are here, I think, is very similar to why you are sitting now there in the chairs, because we believe that the world is headed for a multipolar version of the today's economy. We keep hearing stories about, the rise of Asia, but we also know that Europe is actually a very significant economic powerhouse. But to be honest, when I was first asked to talk about European entrepreneurship, I was a little bit perplexed with the term itself, because we Europeans, we don't really think of ourselves as Europeans first, but actually as citizens of our own countries first, and then maybe secondarily as European. And in the case of HP, we call him HP because it's confusing with having 2 Peters in the company. He was born and raised in Hungary. I was born and raised in Sweden, and that's generally how we think about ourselves. But as soon as we look on a map of where our employees are from in our company, we immediately realize that actually Prezi is a very European startup. And in fact, maybe HP, you could just zoom into Europe a little bit, but what you see there essentially is that we got, at bare minimum, half of Europe covered in terms of where our employees are from. We have 110 people working with the company. 80% of them are working in Budapest, where we started this company, and we represent many countries in Europe. And so the question is really then, when you build a company, it's always a mix of different circumstances and some things planned. Was it planned that we should have this set up? Was it circumstantial? I think we can tell you a few stories that will help you to understand how we ended up where we are today here at Stanford. And I'm going to let HP start and telling you a story about our third co-founder, Adam, and his meeting to start Prezi.
So it was 2006, 2007. I used to be a university professor, a computer science PhD student, a researcher. Let me show my webpage from 2006. Very, very design heavy, So, and I did some research about machine learning, natural language processing, so serious stuff. At the same time, I was working on a social science department as an engineer, and maybe that's why I was invited to give a talk about how Google would disrupt the Hungarian advertisement market, 2006, fresh knowledge at the time. It was a big talk for almost 200 top managers of Hungarian telecom, so I was really thinking about how can I deliver a message, and the message was that, guys, stop doing what you are doing, Google will kill you. So that's the message I want to deliver, and I was thinking about, okay, now what should I do? I don't want to use slides. And I remembered a friend, Adam, who was a media artist designer, and I remember one of his presentations which was really cool, zooming, flying, something. And I emailed Adam, and then I learned something from the media about the media artists and designers. They don't use PowerPoint, they don't use any presentation tool, they create their own tools. That's the cool if you are a media artist. So I emailed Adam, hey Adam, I want to use your tool because I'm having this important presentation. And Adam replied, hey, there is no such like my tool. Here is the file. You can change the design and use your own for your presentation. It was really, really frustrating. Originally, he was an architect, never built any useful building. So that was my first presentation ever, or Zooming presentation ever about Google. It's in Hungarian. You don't have to understand the presentation. This is here just for demonstration. The idea was that there is a big canvas. You draw as an architect, you know, your ideas, and the whole presentation is just a journey around slides. That time. It was a big, big, big success, very positive feedbacks. Everybody loved it. Then we thought first that maybe it's not just Adam and me who likes the idea to use a zooming canvas to give a presentation. It was a nice idea, terrible product. It was really hard to use. It was Flash editor, the software created for designers, and the big innovation was, hey, we need to create our own presentation tool to make it possible for everyone to use the idea. So we were sitting in Hungary, thinking about, now what? How to create a product from the concept. A media artist and a computer science researcher together without any experience. Nobody could help us in Hungary how to do that. And then again, a friend helped. I knew Peter from another project before we worked together on his project, which was bringing TED Talks to mobile phones, making available the TED Talks on mobile phones in 2005. That was his cool project. So I remembered him that, okay, I know one guy who knows what is product, how to build a company, how to build a product for everyone. I knew about him that he was involved in his second startup that time, so the timing was really terrible. But I emailed him like, Peter, great idea. What should we do, basically? At the end, he came to Budapest. He moved to Hungary from Sweden. And one thing about Europe, people like to move from East Europe to Western Europe. People don't move from West to East. He did it. Even you have this funny story about how you made up the decision, this surprising move.
Right. And I think that story says something about our company, actually, because at that time, as HP mentioned, it was a terrible timing for me to make a decision to move to Budapest. And while I really loved the idea, and I loved the guys as well, there was an added incentive for me to make the move. And it had really to do with my first trip to Budapest. Because even though I was born and raised in Sweden, my parents are actually Hungarian, so at home we would speak Hungarian, and when I arrived in Budapest, the first people I met wasn't HP, wasn't Adam, but was my uncle. And he met me at the airport, and we had a half-an-hour car ride to his house where we would have dinner. And in this car ride, I heard a story that I hear all too often when I go to Hungary. So he told me, Peter, Hungary sucks. We don't have enough jobs. And the jobs that we have, well, we end up working for multinationals, and we're not very proud of having these jobs. And yeah, there used to be this great company, was an electronics company. They made refrigerators, but they sold it to the Swedes. And if you can imagine me sitting in the car, I had essentially smoke coming out of my ears, and I could hardly wait, until we arrived at the dinner table. And as I arrived at the dinner table, I was very proud to announce, well, there's this group of guys, and we have a loose concept. We don't have any money. Probably I will have to go without money for the next year or so. But I'm moving here, and we're going to show you that we can do amazing things from Hungary. And I remember him actually, looking at me. And to be honest, I was also, of course, nervous about the decision. But we had this amazing idea that we wanted to come true, and a dream that we can really make the sharing of ideas a better, more engaging, more memorable experience than what we had seen in our times at university or in our business meetings. So that was really the start. But as it's already been alluded to, we don't only have operations in Hungary. In fact, 20% of our company nowadays resides in San Francisco, and I spend maybe 70% of my time there. So given that I'm this Hungarian patriot, why is it then that we need to have a place here in San Francisco as well? Understanding this, I think, is part of understanding how you build an international startup from the get-go. And so I'll give you a few examples. As I mentioned, we started the company in Budapest, and our big goal was to change the entire world, the way they share ideas. And so now it was all about executions, right? How do we get from here to the world? And what we figured out was quite simple. Let's go to the biggest market for Prezi first. And the biggest market for Prezi just happened to be the US. People have here a long tradition of sharing ideas. It's an elementary part of business culture. And for us to be successful on the US market would really define our ability to be successful on many other markets. But then why do you really need, in an internet world, to have presence locally in a country to be successful? Well, I'll give you a few examples. When we started Prezi and we launched the first version publicly on our website, we sold Prezi denominated in euros. Well, it turned out that our US users just didn't know what a euro was. Well, we were very proud because, we were European entrepreneurs, but it turned out that a lot of people in the US market weren't just comfortable in paying in euros, and it was not easy for us to charge for Prezi in dollars without having a US presence. But there are many examples like this that really made us consider opening up offices here in San Francisco to really ensure that we can provide a great experience for our users. I want to leave you with one more thought on that, though, and imagine this. Imagine that we had been able to convert entire Hungary to use Prezi. 10 million people, they were all telling their story using Prezi, and then what? Well, the unfortunate reality of the world as it is today is not as many people would care about that as if we had 10 million Americans using Prezi, because a lot of countries around the world are watching for new trends in the US. So if we had 10 million American users, we believe that we would have an effect on global usage, right? So, great. You know, the company's off the ground. We have established offices in San Francisco. Now, why still have offices back in Budapest? It seems like the easiest thing would be to just move the entire company, no?
So I also moved here in 2010, was living here for almost 2 years. Then last year, we decided that I moved back to Hungary. And believe me, I asked this question several times from myself, and even my wife, Linda, asked this question several times. Why do we really need this office in Hungary? And again, remember, west to east, crazy move. So from the US back to Eastern Europe or Central Europe. So let me start with this. I'm from Hungary. I'm Hungarian, as you can hear. My hometown is Budapest. We just love that country. We can change not just his uncle, but the whole country. That's one of our missions. Let me show 2 examples. One is Budapest Pride. In Hungary, in Eastern Europe, Budapest Pride is more a protest against the homophobe far-right people. It's an activist movement. It's not that kind of celebration. Sometimes it's dangerous. It can be really bad. It was really bad 5 years ago. So Prezi is the first ever any company or business which supports Budapest Pride. That are Prezi employees there. There is no other company in Hungary which does that. Today, we will see. Or here's this project, what I really love. This is our yearly charity project. And it's about that we take the whole company, all employees. I don't know how. Anyway, it's a nice music. So all employees, and we go to Gypsy Roma ghettos. We have too many in Hungary, really bad ghettos. And we try to work with the community to renovate their houses. So we would like to bring the energy to these ghettos. We don't give them money, we bring them or give them energy. And what I really like, that we have employees from 20 countries, and all the employees fly in to Hungary to renovate Roma ghettos. And I believe that this kind of extra sense of purpose can help us. In my second point is recruitment. It's easier to hire, especially engineers, in Hungary. Think about this. Here in San Francisco, our competitors would be Google, Facebook, Twitter, whatever company you can imagine. The best engineers go there, or they work on their own businesses. In Europe, we can hire the top engineers. They are competitors in Europe as well. Anyway, so it's just easier to hire because Prezi in Europe or in Hungary, Eastern Europe, it just sounds better. And one more thing, it's easier to have an international team. We really like international team. We really like the diversity in our company, and it's just easier to do that in Europe. It's easier to get visa. Even you can get visa in Europe. So US citizen, you can come to Europe. We can solve that. And one more thing, Budapest is just cool. Budapest, 2 million people, 10th largest capital of Europe. It's a cool city. Here is a data point. Who knows Zeitgeist, the famous bar of San Francisco, the open door bar? Everybody is proud of Zeitgeist in San Francisco because it's open door. We have 128 similar or better open door bars in Budapest. And there is summer, so you can even enjoy. Or here is my favorite one. This is a bar, which according to Lonely Planet this is the best bar in the world, and that's in Budapest. So Budapest is cool, easier to hire, and there is this extra sense of purpose. Now there is one more question we have to prove. Is this dual setup helpful to achieve a global success?
Right. And the dual setup comes at a cost. So me, for example, I have every morning meetings from 7, but sometimes from 6 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, there is certainly costs associated, but what are the benefits? Well, first, let's just examine, did this kind of global expansion plan with targeting the US market from Budapest work? And the numbers are showing pretty nice trends. So in the last 4 years that the company's been around, we've been essentially doubling every single metric in our company. And what you see here on your right end is that in 2013, we had 20 million people who had signed up for Prezi. And by the way, a little bit less than half of those are American. So the original idea of starting a trend here in the US that would then expand to a global trend has really worked. And right now we're actually working on opening our 3rd office, this time in Asia. So I think this, thank you. This strategy has really worked out for us. But, you know, I think doing a presentation and sharing an ideas and building a company is actually very similar in many ways. It was Kennedy who said that never give a talk unless your intention is really to change the world. And with Prezi, we found a way where we can really change the world. We can improve the way people share ideas, and we can also have a huge impact on our local community. And the way we find meaning in our work is, of course, primarily through the mission of our company. But you know, the individuals that we are and the identity that we have really creates a purpose for what we do through our multinational setup as a company. And that's something that I would really advise you guys to consider as you think about setting up your own companies in the future. Thank you.
So we have about 10 minutes for Q&A. Who wants to start? Yes, sir.
So before you went to meet your uncle, you probably had decided to join his idea. How long was that time it took you? Just like that, or you sat on it for like a week or so? What is the time?
Oh, before I went and visited, so I think we talked on Skype for a few months, maybe 1 or 2 months before I decided to visit. Yeah. But we actually decided on the first meeting. So I stayed for 2 days, and before I left, we had decided to do this. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
It's interesting.
Go
It's
ahead.
interesting you gave the reason why you came to the United States. So for Asia, what is the reason for the country that you chose to set up your office?
It's actually very similar to why we wanted to open up offices in the US. So to really give a great experience to our users in Asia, we have to be present. That's what we learn again and again. I mean, we wish it could be done in a smoother...
How do you choose a country?
The
Oh,
question
how
is
do you
this way.
choose which country?
That's right.
Well, so our first office is going to be in Korea, in South Korea. And that's simply because that's where we have the biggest uptake right now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So I'm a founder of a South African startup. We're actually looking to move here to the Bay Area now.
Mhm.
The one thing I'm very worried about is communication across time zones when you're quite small. How did you guys find that? Because that seems to be a killer, or potentially.
Can I try first? And you should say your story as well. I think this is a huge challenge, and I would advise you to think about broadly more than just like, you know, should we use Skype or not. So one thing that we did from the very get-go is to set up a so-called fellowship program where we actually sponsor people to spend time at the other office. So we pay for their trip, their stay, and this helps to build relationship cross offices. And it also helps to kind of give people an idea of, what is it like in Budapest or San Francisco. Otherwise, you very easily end up in this, the grass is greener on the other side problem. But once you spend time at the other office, you'll see that it's, an office just like any other, and it actually diffuses a lot of those potential issues, I think. But maybe you have some other thoughts.
I think what is important that you should never believe in a bandwidth. So there is no bandwidth between the two offices. So try to have a company structure which doesn't need too much communication. So for example, we have the whole product management and design, not just the engineering in Europe. So we don't need to send Scrum stories, every day.
So it's sort of fully autonomous.
Yeah, not full. Okay. Yes, it is. No. He doesn't know.
Well, you should design. I think the point is clear and very smart. Be smart about designing your organization, and we have all our product development centered in Budapest, and we have marketing centered in San Francisco. Again, based on our general strategy for what we want to achieve as a company.
Next question.
Hi. So I want to know what makes Prezi successful. From my perspective, it's about Prezi service. It helps the users deliver very unique presentation. But unique is a concept all about different from others. So if on this classroom, every person in this room use Prezi, that means we lose our unique.
Yeah.
So my question is, how Prezi will deal with this sort of dilemma? On one hand, as a business, you have to seek for user groups. But on the other hand, as a product, if the new user acquired, that means it may hurt overall user experience.
Yeah. I think this is a relevant point, and as long as you use Prezi only for the trend factor, you have that issue. But if there are other values, like for example, Prezi engages you as you develop your ideas, Prezi makes you more rememberable, or Prezi actually helps people to understand relationships better, then you have other values which is harder to get from a different format. So there's actually a Dutch university now that did a comparison in control groups, doing the same presentation based in slides and doing it in Prezi. And what they found was that people understand and remember more when they see a Prezi version. Why? Well, it has a lot to do with this visual journey. It turns out that a large part of our brains is actually dedicated to something that's called a spatial visual understanding and memory. And that's what Prezi connects to in a slightly better way than when you just superimpose images on top of each other. Because when you move around in one space, you kind of always have a sense of context. Where am I coming from? Where am I going? And this is probably the reason why people end up understanding and remembering more information when done in a Prezi.
Question from, yes, sir.
Yeah, where do you see the company will be in 5 years from now? There is a limit how far you can stretch presentation. The technology is there.
Yeah.
Why don't you enter other verticals and other horizontals?
So we've always labeled Prezi as a presentation tool, but we never thought of ourselves as a presentation company. Why did we label it as a presentation tool? We needed a way to explain to people something about Prezi that they could relate to. However, we are really in this project because we believe that there's better ways of sharing ideas. Slides are about 350 years old. The whiteboards, or what used to be the blackboards, are 200 years old. And between those two things, there hasn't been any innovation in how to really make idea sharing in a setting like this, for example, really effective. And so what we're seeing is that Prezi is a completely different format and with unique strengths to it. And just to give you an idea of what that can be is, we see that those who are really efficient Prezi users, they kind of cut down the energy that it takes to go from brainstorming and pitching an idea, because they do all of those things in the same environment instead of, first doing a brainstorming session on a whiteboard and then translating that into slides. And this is becoming immensely important because, you might see that even for Google and Apple, the biggest part of their kind of challenge is, can they come up with the next creative idea that will make their company relevant in the next year? And this is the same kind of challenge that I'm sure even a gaming company goes through, and many other. The exchange of ideas is really speeding up, and to be creative means that you have a competitive advantage. And so the tools that enable you to produce creative ideas in a faster rate is what's going to win your long-term survival.
We have time for one more question in the back.
There's just a question as a Hungarian. I know that many Hungarian startups are struggling attracting enough investment and seed capital. How do you guys go about this problem, and what do you have as an advice for Hungarian companies, Hungarian startups who would like to come to the Bay Area and start out here?
Well, so we launched Prezi very bootstrapped, and there was a very specific reason to that, because it is hard to attract investments in Hungary. I hope that companies like LogMeIn, Ustream, and Prezi is now kind of pioneering a new perspective and view on Hungary. The fact is that, for example, LogMeIn is actually a $500 million company publicly traded on NASDAQ. And Ustream, as you may know, I think the last number I heard was 70 million users. So actually, not a lot of people know this, but Hungary has a tremendous amount of innovations coming out of it for being such a small country. Where I grew up in Sweden, for example, I don't know that there's many more. It's just that Sweden is more known to be producing these startups. And I think that one of the things that we want to do is really change this image. And by doing so, I think Hungary will be really well set up to attract more money. And I believe that future generation of entrepreneurs will have an easier time to find this money.
HP, did you have a final comment?
To answer the question, we didn't raise money in Hungary.
Okay. So Peter Vesterbacka is Mighty Eagle at Rovio Entertainment, based in Helsinki. Peter, what's going on with Angry Birds? Thank you for coming.
Yeah, hey, thanks. And it's great to be back here. So a few 100 million downloads later. But anyway. So we're first of all, I think I would like to start with kind of like one thing, that we're not a gaming company. So we haven't kind of like viewed ourselves as kind of like a games company for a long time. We're active in all areas of entertainment. So always when I'm asked about competition, I mention two competitors. And first one is Disney, and that's again a nice positioning statement for us, because just as Disney, we're active in kind of like all areas of entertainment. So yeah, we're making games, animations, and building parks. So we're kind of like all over the place if you look at from that perspective. Yeah, always looking at what Disney guys are doing and trying to do it better and faster. So that's one thing. And then the other competitor is television. So all of television. So kind of like we try to take on some big guys. But anyway, and actually the background to kind of like mentioning those two competitors, there's a very good article in Forbes, I think a year and a half ago, where it was one of these articles that like, who do these guys think they are? Disney, right? At the same time as, or Disney is investing as much into their like theme park outside of Shanghai in 20 days as Rovio makes in a year. And then they had another interesting comparison where they mentioned, and at that time people were only playing Angry Birds for like 2 hours a month. Okay, now it's much more, but still. Then they compared us to all of TV, and at that time all of TV in the US 158.8 hours or something like that. So of course we're slightly smaller than all of TV, but we're working on it. But what was nice about that comparison, of course, is already then we're bigger than any individual TV show. So if you look at audience size, engagement, we're much bigger than any of those guys. And for us, our audience is like Super Bowl every day. And okay, not being American, I don't really know what that means, but apparently the Super Bowl is like pretty big. So yeah, so it sounds good. Anyway, also maybe a bit about history of Angry Birds. So Angry Birds came out 11th of December 2009. So a while ago, a bit over 3 years ago. And it was not the first game that Rovio made. Rovio actually made 51 games before Angry Birds. So now, you know, like talking to, you know, fellow entrepreneurs and startups, future startups, you know, you have to kind of like believe. So it's not that a lot of these companies, a lot of the success stories, they're not overnight success stories. And I mean, you can view Rovio as an overnight success story that took a few years. The first games were made in 2003. And another thing that I should mention here, so there's a lot of students in here. Rovio actually was a student project. So Rovio came out of a competition that I organized. I was working for HP, you know, not that guy, but actually the company. but anyway, so organized that, and then Niklas and two of his friends, they were actually students at the Helsinki University of Technology. So this competition was about making the best possible mobile multiplayer game. And you know, those of you who were in school back in 2003, a long time ago, might remember that this is like before the iPhone. This was actually when Nokia came out with the first like camera phones, first smartphones, and very, very kind of like different technical capabilities to compare to what we have today. But anyways, Niklas and his friends made this game called King of the Cabbage World, won the competition, and then came to me after that and asked me, okay, what do we do now? And then I gave them like some advice. I don't know, okay, now I guess it's okay, but anyway, I told them that, okay, why don't you start making games, because I mean, you love making games, and you know, like, good idea for a startup. Of course, 2003, pretty hostile environment, not, you know, like a very open ecosystem, not a great place to be for a startup. And you know, golden rule of venture capital, it's too early, too late. So definitely, you know, like one of these too early kind of cases. But then, you know, stuck to making games and had its ups and downs, and then yeah, 50-second game. That was then when the iPhone was out, the App Store was there, so you know, the ecosystem around Rovio had changed a lot, and it was a lot easier to get, you know, your own game out there without having to go through handset makers or operators, you know, the carriers. So much better timing. But anyway, you learn a lot, and I think that that's one thing that if you look at Rovio, we know that we have a lot of stuff that we don't know, so we try to learn, and we try to learn faster than the other guys. But yeah, anyway, we came out with Angry Birds in December 2009, and it didn't kind of like immediately become a massive hit. So we became #1 in Finland pretty quickly. Okay, back then market very dominated by Nokia, so you know, we told friends and family who had iPhones to download the game and became #1. So you know, that's kind of like amazing marketing for you. But you know, and then it kind of spread. So we became #1 in Sweden, and then Apple took note. They featured us in the UK, became #1, and then a bit after that, so the spring 2010, became #1 in the US. What was different with Angry Birds compared to a lot of other games, and actually to a lot of other like hit businesses, you know, hits, you know, hit and go. And Angry Birds very different, that from the beginning we built it as a service. So constant updates. The intent was really to kind of like get to #1 and stay there. And that's actually what happened. So we stayed at #1 for more than 300 days, and I think that that's still like 10 times longer than any of our competitors. And what I mean by that, like treating it as a service. If you downloaded the original Angry Birds game, came with 63 levels and a few birds. And if you download the same game now, it has more than 400 levels. So we've done updates, every few weeks, every few months, with new levels, new features, new stuff, which means that we've kept our fans, kept them engaged with the game. And then we also released several other Angry Birds titles. So again, giving the fans more of the Angry Birds world. And if you look at our number of downloads, first 12 months we did 50 million, which was a good start. And what's interesting with that number, so in the spring of 2010, outlined for everybody at Rovio, and at that time we're like less than 30 people. So okay, and less than, I think we had like 3 million downloads, something like that. So kind of like set some pretty ambitious goals, and I think this is important. You had the thing about changing the world, so I mean that's what we're obviously all about, building the future of entertainment. So we actually set out to get 100 million downloads, and kind of like everybody at the company, everybody outside thought I was crazy because I was told that only Tetris has managed to do that, and it took Tetris more than 20 years. And if you buy the Guinness Book of Records, like last year, I think this year they already fixed it, but last year still said that, okay, Tetris, most successful game of all time, more than 100 million copies distributed. And so we basically had a Tetris strategy. 100 million downloads, let's go on all screens like Tetris, so phones, tablets, TVs, you name it. And first year, 50 million. Then second 12 months, we did 550 million. And in the May last year, we announced $1 billion. So and we're working on our second $1 billion. Because they say, somebody told me that the first $1 billion is the most difficult, so so we'll see. But at least we're going to get to the second $1 billion faster, so that's for sure. But again, those are download numbers. They're interesting, but doesn't really tell you too much about the engagement. So another number that we announced was actually recently we shared that we had 263 million monthly actives in December last year. So 263 million fans that played our game or our games in December. And to put that in perspective, it's more than Twitter has users. So it's a pretty massive audience, and it's still growing very, very rapidly. So massive engagement, and it took us 3 years. It took Twitter 6 years. So the growth, the speed of growth is pretty good. But that said, we look at that as a good start. So our ambition, if you look at Angry Birds, so there are two things that we care about: the fans and the brand, and kind of like everything we do revolves around those two things. So really focused on kind of like 3-step process. So get fans, keep fans, monetize. So monetization is a distant third. But again, that said, we're doing okay on the monetization front as well. So been very, very profitable. We haven't announced our last year numbers, but our 2011 numbers did about 100 million, 64% profit. So it's not too bad, and we try to kind of like run our business in such a way that we make half profit, and I think that we're kind of like on track to do that. So and with pretty good growth. So when we came out with the game, actually the original team, 12 people. Beginning of last year, we're 200 people, and now we're over 600. So we're adding quite a few people. And we have about 100 open positions. So if anybody's interested, let me know. So we're definitely looking for a lot more talent. But yeah, I started by saying that we're not a games company. So we expanded into consumer products. So first thing that we did was plush toys. Even though we're told that, okay, hey, you guys are a games company, you should stick to what you know. And then we kind of like ignored the advice and kind of like figured out how difficult can it be. And we were kind of like told that it's like rocket science and you know, like it's really, really difficult. So then we teamed up with Commonwealth Toy in New York. They've been making plush toys and toys for like 100 years, so they should know what they're doing. And actually what happened when we first came out with the toys, so we totally underestimated demand. So we came out with the toys like it was October, November time frame. Everybody ordered the toys for like Christmas, and we ran out in like I think it was like a day or two, and we thought it would like last for like a while. So it actually then meant that we had to, we couldn't of course meet the demand. There's no way we could get enough toys made to be shipped to all the people who wanted the toys. So we then still remember like between Christmas and New Year's, I went to kind of like this group at Aalto University in Helsinki and hired 12 like students to work on like just replying to all the emails, all the kind of like complaints that where are my toys? I ordered these for Christmas. So we kind of like learned the hard way that shipping physical products actually requires having a lot of those, and it's tough to estimate the demand. But okay, it was a positive problem, but it took us until March to clear up like all the like customer support emails and everything. And now we have, I would say that we have one of the best customer support operations in our industry anyway. So we reply to every email, every tweet, okay, not every comment on Facebook, but we're trying to get there. And really, really important to us. And we get a lot of feedback that, hey, wait a minute, it's like a 99-cent or free app, and you guys actually like reply. So that's something that's very, very important for us. But yeah, so we expand into consumer products and haven't announced more detailed numbers, but we did about 30% of our business 2011 was physical products. So a lot of our traditional competitors on the game side running around saying that, okay, in a few years, all of their business will be digital. And what I always tell people is that in a few years, more than half of our business will be physical. So again, going against the trends there. So then another thing that we did, we acquired an animation studio. So we're now running the biggest animation studio in Northern Europe, which okay, that probably like doesn't take much, but anyway, we are with our animations the biggest brand on YouTube. So we just passed 1 billion views was the other week, and yeah, you know, as they say, billion here, billion there, real soon, real money. Anyway, so yeah, it's a good number. It's a good number. But one thing that we're doing there, so we're actually gonna talk a bit more about that. I'm heading to South by Southwest from here for the weekend. So Monday we're gonna talk a bit more about Angry Birds Toons. So we're launching our own channel, and we have our own animated series now with weekly new episodes, 2 minutes, 45-minute episodes, new one every week. So with the game we built one of the biggest distribution platforms on the planet. So we're going to work with some broadcasters, but again, the main thing for us is that we can distribute massively ourselves. So you know, kind of like stay tuned for more on that. But again, you know, getting into other areas of entertainment as well, and we think that should be interesting. So I think that it's a new world out there, and you don't always need to do it the Hollywood like hard way. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Then we're also running a big advertising business. So that's another thing that again mentioned television as competition. So what we just kind of launched this brand and media partnership team. So we hired a bunch of people from that industry. So that's actually one way we try to learn these other kind of like ecosystems that we get into. So we hired a guy who used to run iAd in Europe from Apple, and then we hired a bunch of TV folks. So really want to go after kind of like the big brand budgets, and that's something that you'll see a lot more. Not, you know, like just creating a bunch of like display ads in our games, but really integrate the experiences, like we did with 20th Century Fox around Angry Birds Rio, which great game, but also a great promotional tool for Rio the movie, which made actually Rio the most successful animated movie of that year. Did about $500 million at the box office, and we probably added like 200 million through our game. So the Fox guys were pretty happy and are very happy with that. So all for kind of creating new kind of like partnerships. But then, so yeah, we have a bunch of different business areas, and the way we go after these is really we try to look at who the best people are in kind of like any given space, and then we replicate what they do it better, do it faster. Good example of learning from kind of like the Hollywood guys. So we did Angry Birds Star Wars with Lucas, and we've had a bunch of our people sitting at the Lucas offices here in San Francisco, you know, learning from those guys. They kept Star Wars relevant since 1977. So they're doing something right, and of course we want to make sure that Angry Birds becomes a permanent part of pop culture. So we're kind of like building Angry Birds for the next 100 years. And then another partner is Sanrio. So we teamed up with those guys in Japan. So Sanrio, they have this little cat character that's been popular since 1974, Hello Kitty, you might have heard about it. So we figured that they must know something, so we kind of like been working very closely with them in Japan. And again, we just opened our Tokyo office, so that's something that kind of like we're doing that part of the world. Yeah, okay, we talked a little bit about like geography. So, okay, we have most of our people, so more than 500 people in Helsinki, so very kind of like concentrated to one location. First office we opened after Helsinki was Shanghai. So, you know, China, billion plus people. It's actually now our biggest market when it comes to number of fans. And it's also the fastest growing. The US is our kind of like financially the biggest market, but second biggest when we look at the number of fans. And for us, it's very, very important to be the leading Chinese entertainment brand. And we are actually the most copied brand in China, which is actually a very, very good thing, because it means that we are the most loved brand. There's more copies of Angry Birds than all of Disney. So, you know, and then if you look at that, you know, that bodes well for really, you know, good things for the future. We also have like some official stats out of Korea. So, you know, if you look at the like various customs like confiscations and all of that, in 2011 we were number 2. So number 2 most copied. If you look at the custom statistics, number 1 was Viagra, and number 3 was Calvin Klein, and then all of Disney was number 4. I think we had more than 6 times more like cases than Disney. And last year we changed that, so we're now number 1. Viagra is number 2. So, you know. Yeah. So Korea is actually a massive, massive market for us. So the office we opened after Shanghai was actually Seoul, Korea. So we have people on the ground there, and also learning from the Korean market. They're very, very good at high quality consumer products, just as Japan. So you know, if you're successful there, create successful products in Japan and Korea, those products travel very, very well. So the quality is amazing, and you know, good enough for like anywhere. Yeah, then we also have an office in Santa Monica. So that's our US operation. So we don't have anybody here in the Valley. So I think that's also, again, it's not like if you have a startup, you have to be here. I think that's also, again, you should always kind of like really think about where you need to be. For us, Santa Monica is important because we want to keep an eye on those guys in Hollywood and you know, see what they're up to. So you know, we can learn a lot, and then we're competing with a lot of those guys. So you know, it's important to be nearby. Then we have also opened a studio in Stockholm. So we have about 20-30 people now there building kind of like new games, new titles. And let's see, what else do we have? Yeah, that's pretty much like our geographic like spread. So we have about 10 people now in our US operation. So that's kind of like the extent of that so far. One thing also I should mention. So one very big focus area for us. We haven't shared too much about it yet, but we have a massive books and learning operation. We came out with 100 books last year. So traditional paper form. We're also taking them over, of course, to the digital side, where we're our strength is. But the book side, it's all kinds of books. So cookbooks to Angry Birds Space book that we did together with National Geographic and NASA. So we actually, being crazy ambitious, we decided to give the world education. So that's what we're working on. And right now our books are following the Finnish curriculum. So they're actually approved, learning material can be used in schools in Finland. And then we also have a deal with People's Publishing, aka the government in China. So our books are also approved for Chinese schools, and that's a huge focus for us. And we think that we can do things like bring creativity into the Chinese school system. So working with the Educational Ministry of China, their Cultural Ministry, and all of that. So huge opportunity for us. And then we also have our books in English. So we're working with National Geographic, with NASA, with CERN. So we have the best partners on the planet. So we're also going to bring our educational program over here. So full curriculum, and we're going to be in a lot of the schools, but the main target is really going after the families, so the parents and the kids. So making learning fun. So that's a big initiative that we're running as we speak. So not a games company, active in all areas of entertainment, also building parks. But anyway.
So let's open it up for Q&A.
Yeah, and we are in the business of interactive entertainment, so you get a lot more out of the interaction. So let's do some questions and comments.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Angry Birds or Rovio does work with Disney. How much is Disney a partner and how much is a competitor to you?
Yeah, I mean, we're working with Disney now because they acquired Lucas, so I guess they got desperate when we announced Angry Birds Star Wars, and then boom, 4 billion, Lucas gone. But anyway, so we work with Disney through Lucas. Then besides that, we haven't really done too much with the Disney guys. I mean, it's friendly competition, but yeah. to them we're that bird company from Helsinki. So
Yes, sir. In the back.
You guys are obviously really successful in your growth. So can you talk a little about the growth hacking, and how most effective tools do you employ?
For
growth, your most effective growth hacks that you guys use to get user growth.
So actually, it's all organic. So we haven't spent any money on advertising or user acquisition, and the way we do that is that it's all about the brand. So we build events, we build stuff that gets planetary wide notice. So for example, when we launched Angry Birds Space, we did it in space on the International Space Station together with NASA, and then that went everywhere. So that's the kind of stuff that we do, and you can expect to see those kind of stunts from us this year as well. But it's really all about building, let's say, events and stories around the birds, the pigs, and all of that. We try to build everything for very, very viral distribution, and of course everybody does that. But if you start with the brand Angry Birds, begs for a question: why are the birds angry? So that's a big deal of big part of how we made Angry Birds successful. And then the color red, works. So it's all about standing out from the crowd, both online and offline.
No, sorry, you had a question earlier on. Yes, sir. You had a question.
I was curious about to know what was in your mind when you decided to stick with this concept of Angry Birds, and why Angry Birds, not Happy Birds?
So again, Angry Birds, because as I said, it begs for a question. It's different. I mean, already like Happy Birds doesn't really like create much of a reaction. I mean, there's kind of like no edge to that. It really, and if you look at like Angry Birds, that's, you know, of course now everybody knows the brand, hopefully, but again, I think that's kind of like one thing. And then very important decision that we made early on is that the kind of like the plan was that, okay, let's create games for the iPhone until we have a hit, and when we have a hit, let's go all in, instead of like you know, kind of like having this illusion of like, now we know what we are doing, so, you know, let's create another hit. Because a lot of companies, you know, and that's like not only games, that's like in movies, music, you know, there are so many kind of like one-hit wonders that, okay, you know, they decide that, okay, now we made a hit, let's make another one. And I think that, you know, we've seen that, and I think for us, we're really only getting started with Angry Birds. So, I mean, we have good numbers, but our ambition, if you look at numbers-wise, we want to be the first entertainment brand with 1 billion fans. And the way we define that is that 1 billion people a day. So, I mean, we now have some tens of millions of people engaging with our brand, you know, from a games perspective every day. So we're like only done like a small beginning for where we need to be. So we have kind of a couple of years to kind of like get there.
Yes, ma'am.
Why did you go to learn? Does it have something to do with Finland staying on PISA and the country at very high level together?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we can leverage the fact that Finland has very good schools and kind of like starts to be pretty well known for that. So I think, but then also it's something that it's kind of like our way of kind of like doing the right thing. So it's also kind of like giving something back. But I think that it's also a massive business. I mean, if you look at kind of like the kind of like take China. I mean, there's the single biggest kind of like expenditure if you look at households in China, learning. One kid, you know, so they kind of like everything, they go to school 7 days a week, and there's, you know, besides the kind of like normal school, there's all this additional you know, schooling happening. So we're building kind of like our program really to go after what is probably like one of the biggest markets on the planet. So again, it's a massive opportunity, also the right thing to do.
Eilif?
Do you expect that the Angry Bird characters will be an integral part in your learning programs as well? So it'll be game-based learning Angry Birds, or is that assuming too much?
No, absolutely. I mean, we already done learning material based on Angry Birds, and it's again, you know, familiar characters, and it's nothing new. I mean, Disney runs English schools in China, so again, you know, looking at Disney, they have a few schools, we'll have more. So you know, like you know, that's kind of like the plan, and I think that also we are much more relevant to kind of like the current generation than some of those other guys. So I think that of course we want to bring our characters into the learning environment, and when we talk about learning, so okay, it's kind of like books, traditional learning material, but it's also of course games, other applications. But I mean, we're very active in like videos. So we've already produced a whole bunch of videos together with NASA. So I mean, the launch video of Angry Birds Space was like a learning video. Was like an astronaut on the International Space Station explaining about microgravity. And then that video, because it's learning video, went to schools, you know, all over America, all over the world. And we're getting, you know, so many contacts from schools that, hey, you know, thanks for making space popular again. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's and then what we did with NASA, we just opened 2 of our activity parks, so in Houston and Cape Canaveral. So if you go to the space, you know, visit centers, you'll find Angry Birds Space branded activity parks in both. So you know, so we have a very close collaboration with NASA, and it's again all about making space, you know, and learning about space fun. And then we kind of threw in a few books that we did together with the National Geographic guys. So Nat Geo, great brand, and again we try to look for kind of like the best possible partners. Another partner, CERN, so we're decided to teach kids about quantum physics and making it fun because we can. So
one more question for Peter, then we're going to bring up Prezi. Yes, sir.
At which point of your product development cycle did you know this 50-second product was different and going to be a super hit?
I think that
Billion here and billion there, but could you talk about some of the things didn't go so well, so you did course corrections?
Yeah, I mean, already mentioned the plush toys. So, I mean, that was like didn't go so well. But okay, now it's going. But yeah, I think that we knew during development that it was different because the development team, they were playing the game a lot. So like that first indication, and then I think probably like the best indication when the game was done, when Niklas, so our founder, he took then of course the game and his phone like. Back to his parents over Christmas, and he gave always like, okay, here check this this game that we made, gave it to his mother, and typically what kind of like happens is then okay, she takes a look and oh yeah, very nice, and and he gets the phone back. But then what happened with Angry Birds that didn't get the phone back all Christmas. So and his mother doesn't play any games, so it was. Probably the most like powerful indication that there's something here, and I think that that's what we hear like every day. People come up to me and say that okay, I never play games, but I play Angry Birds. So kind of like expanding the market for games.
Okay, can we bring both you guys up now? And let's get you guys more centrally located here.
Yeah.
So we're just going to do a quick 5-10 minutes more, and part of what I'd like to explore a little bit is, and Peter, maybe you may be best positions, being both in Hungary and Sweden. What are the differences you see between Scandinavia, Nordic versus Hungary, Central Europe, in terms of entrepreneurship culture, universities, startups, whatever?
Yeah, so I'm a huge believer in role models, and the one benefit that, for example, Sweden has over Hungary is that Sweden actually has this huge tradition of being an export-led economy. So Volvo, H&M, Saab, ABB, Ericsson. There's tons of Swedish brands that people around the world know about. Nowadays, Skype, Spotify, and these kind of things really helps to set a tone, I believe, in society that, the way we build a successful country and a culture is by creating products and companies that are desired by other people around the world. And I think a lot of the time Swedish people underestimate how an integral part of the identity or the Swedish identity this is, because as a Swede we just kind of assume that this is given. And for those of you who don't know so much about Hungarian history, then I can tell you that one of the proud facts that Hungarians talk a lot about is that Hungary has one of the largest per capita Nobel prizes in the world. But having said that, the history that the country has gone through hasn't made it possible, for example, for Hungary to really be this successful economic powerhouse. And for the young generation of entrepreneurs growing up, that is really something that, those role models are people who are, starting with a dream and then building successful economic ventures, providing jobs for others is kind of missing right now. And I think is something that's really important to get to. And actually, I think the whole conversation around, financing is not such an important one. I believe that financing is a means to an end. And you can find ways of solving for that, because nowadays there are these sophisticated investors who will understand a great opportunity irrespective of where you start from. What's much harder is really enabling people to believe that they can do and they can dream, and they are able to achieve all of the things that they want to. And that's an American dream that I believe we should spread around the world to really enable people to bring more positive things.
So you're actually suggesting that Europeans become more optimistic?
Yes. Yeah, I'm not going to comment further on that.
Peter?
Yeah, but I totally agree. I think that it's very important to have role models in place, and that's something. And yeah, Sweden has had some good role models. Of course, like you have Skype and which is like Swedish Estonian, when it's been actually very good for Estonia that they've had that. So we have a lot of startups coming up, and Spotify and those guys are doing good job. So, but also if you look at it's actually Northern Europe has a lot of that. So in Finland with Linux, MySQL, of course now with Angry Birds we hopefully can be part of a role model scene as well. But I think that it's very, very important that you can have that, and then if we can do it, anybody can. And that's what I talk a lot to the students in Finland and wherever I go. And I think that it's very, very important to look at again Rovio student project, and then now we're here, and we just did a study in China. 94% of the Chinese population know the brand, and that's pretty amazing considering 3 guys from the Helsinki University of Technology, and then a few years later all of China. So I think that it's a great example that if those 3 guys could do it, there's no reason why you couldn't. And I think also you can do this anywhere. You don't have to be here in the valley. I mean, it's of course an amazing environment, but it's also everybody's here. So I think that always good to think about where you want to be and where's the best place to build your amazing startup. And you can do that in Budapest, you can do it in Helsinki, you can do it in a lot of different places. But yeah, the importance of role models can't be underestimated. So then really need that.
HP, any comments here?
They are smarter than me. It's not recorded.
So a couple more minutes of questions. Yes, sir, in the way back. Yes.
Yeah, I was just curious. So you said Finland has MySQL right now.
Linux.
I think from Finland too. And then Angry Bird. I was wondering, is this a coincidence? Finland was the smallest place, has so many successful.
Open source is part of the culture. So that's one of the reasons why there's a long tradition of. There's even a Finnish word for this, talkoot, which is a barn racing in English. So that's very much part of how things are done. So I think that's something that is a reason why you have Linux, you had MySQL, IRC was created by Jarkko Oikarinen back in the day. So there's a lot of tradition of creating these kind of things, and and then Nokia used to be pretty relevant as well. So of course, have some experience about building massive consumer brands. But I think also that's also that you you have to build that tradition. And I think that again you come back to role models that. If I look at the startups that are coming up now in the region, so not only in Finland but surroundings, there's amazing ambition, so people are building things that will be global. They really think about how do you scale this, not now 100 million, been there, done that, it's the billion, and going for that. So we have some pretty interesting companies coming up, and I think that also one thing, if you look at again now talking just about Finland, but we organized this Slush conference, which is the biggest startup conference at least in Northern Europe, probably Europe, and of course it's the best in Europe easily. But they've done that like 5 times now in Helsinki. And last year when we organized this, we had 3 government ministers. We had the Prime Minister, the Minister of Trade, the Minister of Industry. So it also shows that startups and entrepreneurship are high on the priority list. So it's not just talk, but the ministers are actually showing up, participating, and being part of like the conversation. And I think that's something that we haven't seen ever before. And I think that's something that, of course, all of this startup stuff has to come from grassroots, but then at least the government needs to understand and like how to stay out of the way. So I think that's important.
HP in Budapest, and Peter, you might want to share your mic. Do ministers or prime ministers show up at startup conferences?
Not yet. Anyway, we have more and more events. So we are at the grassroots level, more and more events, more and more people are interested in this whole startup scene. VCs, incubator houses, conferences, everybody is learning. VCs have to learn, startups have to learn, government has to learn how to stay away. Yeah. And so in Prezi, for example, we decided we don't. Maybe it's without microphone. So yeah. So for example, we don't use government money. We don't use EU money. It just slows us down. So that's something an issue in Europe, that we have tons of money. We have to learn how to use that to speed up.
Why are you saying that EU money slows you down? Like, what are there like restrictions that come with taking money?
Did everyone hear the question? So the question is, why do you not take EU money? Does it slow you down?
Right, thank you for that. Okay, so I mean, generally, there's a lot of very important efforts in Europe to kind of bring innovation to the European continent, and I think those who are in the business are acutely aware that we don't have a Silicon Valley in Europe. Probably we'll never have. We'll have more islands of various competencies. And so one of the ways that politics have tried to boost the learning and innovation in Europe is really to just put a lot of governmental money. Now, historically, this has sometimes actually played out well. So we know, for example, if you study Korean history, you'll see actually that the government was very heavily involved with building the initial companies, and it panned out, I think, pretty well for Korea. But a lot of the times when the EU funds are spent, they are not spent by people who are really knowledgeable about the IT industry and innovation maybe in general. And so it's easy to kind of take off that initial spark of an idea and make it go in the wrong direction unless you have the right insights on the investor side. And so those are the issues that I think still doesn't necessarily make these EU funds as efficient as they can be.
Peter. Yeah, but I think that one of the big problems is that there are so many of these like wannabe like Silicon Valleys, and I mean there's like the Silicon Valley and that's it. I mean it's like I don't think that it's like a good idea to try to copy things in general. I mean it's again you have to kind of like build your own, and I mean that's again I mentioned this slush conference, so that's very different from like anything here in the US, starting with the fact that it's in November in Helsinki. November in Helsinki, it's like cold, dark, slush on the ground. And I mean, that's like already, you know, there are so many of these conferences in Europe that take place in the summer, so that it's like, okay, hopefully the weather is nice and hopefully it's like in the valley. And it's like, it's bullshit. I mean, like, you know, reality, especially in Helsinki, very different. It's cold, dark, there's many times slush on the ground, but it doesn't stop us. I mean, we given the world Linux and MySQL and few Angry Birds. So it's not, you know, you can't complain about the climate or like the environment and all that. You have to do your own thing. And I think that that's also, if you look at kind of like the startup ecosystem in kind of like Northern Europe and what's kind of like being built in Helsinki, I mean, it's better than the Silicon Valley in many areas. And that's kind of like what needs to be the ambition. So it's you know, it's really stupid by these governments to try to replicate the valley, because the valley is a unique place, and again, you know, it's not like we need to copy. We can kind of actually come up with like our own original ideas. So I think that that's something that you know, to the EU discussion and all of that, that it's not a problem of money and giving, you know, like you know, clueless people giving clueless people money. That's like, you know, it doesn't work. Yeah.
I totally agree with all these comments, but we're going to have to wrap it up. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.